Huron County Community Library, a destination for all ages.
Hi there, my name is Bizzie, and I'm in the Huron County Public Library, and I'm going to tell you some scary stories. The gruesome ghoul, the grisly ghoul, without the slightest noise, waits patiently beside the school to feast on girls and boys. He lunges fiercely through the air when they come out to play, grabs a couple by the hair, and drags them far away. He cracks their bones and snaps their backs, and squeezes out their lungs. He chews their thumbs like candy snacks and pulls apart their tongues. He slashes their stomachs and bites their hearts and tears their flesh to shreds. He eats their toes like toasted tarts and gobbles down their heads. Fingers, elbows, hands, knees, and arms, legs and feet. He eats them with delight and ease, 'cause every bite's a treat. When that gruesome, grisly ghoul has nothing left to chew, he hurries to another school and waits, perhaps for you. It's Jack Perlutsky, and he has a lot of good monster stories. Check him out at the library. Now, I'm going to tell you the most terrible story I know. It really is the most terrible story. You'll see what I'm talking about. Deep in the woods, in a house made out of hemp stalks, lived an old man and an old woman, a little girl, and 3 dogs. And deep in the woods, where the couple and the little girl and the dogs didn't know about, there was a cave. And in that cave lived the Hobyahs. Now, if you have never seen a Hobyah, count your blessings, because they are ugly, horrible, frightening creatures. They have pointed ears like a cat and sharp claws like a lion. And they have hairy bodies and red eyes, and they eat people. One evening, the old man and the old lady and the little girl lay down to go to bed, and the Hobyahs decided that they were hungry. So they creeped out of their cave, and they sang as they came, "Hobyah, Hobyah, Hobyah, tear down the hemp stalks, eat up the old man, eat up the old lady, carry off the little girl." And they came through the trees. But the dogs heard them coming, and they barked and they barked and they barked, and they frightened away the Hobyahs. But the old lady turned to the old man and said, "That dogs, they disturb our sleep, and I can neither sleep nor slumber. So, in the morning, I want you to chase those dogs away." Well, in the morning, the old man got a big switch. I told you this was a terrible story. And he switched at those dogs, and he chased them away. But by evening, they came back. And again, the old man and the old lady and the little girl went to bed. And again, the Hobyahs plotted, "Hobyah, Hobyah, Hobyah, tear down the hemp stalk, eat up the old man, eat up the old woman, carry off the little girl." And slobbering and slithering they came. And the dogs again barked and barked and barked and barked and frightened them away. And the old woman said, "You have to get rid of those dogs. They never let us sleep. But they did save them. They just didn't know it. The next morning, the old man got a bigger switch, and he chased those dogs deep into the woods. It took him all day and half the night to come back. But by the time the old man and the old woman and the little girl were asleep, and the hobbyos started to come, they were there under the porch. Hobya, 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 tear down the hemstock. Eat up the old man, eat up the old woman, and carry off the little girl. And again the dogs barked and barked and barked, frightened away the hobbyos. And the old lady turned to the old man and gave him such a smack. She said, "You were supposed to get rid of those dogs. Now I want you to switch them really good tomorrow." I told you it was a terrible story. So the next day, he got an even bigger switch, and he went at those dogs, and he chased them and chased them and chased them, and they were gone. And that night, they all went to bed, and again the hobbyos plotted their mischief. Hobya, 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 tear down the hemstocks, eat up the old man, eat up the old woman, carry off the little girl. And they came, and there were no dogs. And they tore down the hemstocks. They ate up that nasty old man. They ate up that horrible old woman. And they put the girl in a sack, threw her over their shoulder, and carried her off to their cave. Then they hung that sack in a place in their cave, and they laid down and had themselves asleep. They would eat that girl tomorrow for breakfast. Well, after a little while, she sat there in that dark sack, hearing the hobbyos snore and sleep and slumber. And she was terrified, because in their sleep they would go, rah, rah. She knew they were going to eat her. What can I do? She just cried and cried. But do you know who heard her? The dogs heard her, and they sneaked into that cave. And they climbed on top of each other till they could reach the sack, and they chewed a hole in the bottom of it. And the little girl sneaked out, and she sneaked out of the cave. And then the dogs put themselves in the sack. And come morning, the hobbyos woke. I feel like I could eat 10 little girls this morning. And they went over to the sack, and they pulled it down, and they pulled open the sack. And what did they find? The 3 dogs jumped out and chased them and bit them and ate them. And the little girl and the dogs, they went back to those woods where the hemp house was, and they built another one, a small one, just big enough for a little girl and 3 dogs. And if they haven't left, they're still there. And that's the end. Perhaps you've heard about senior housing. It's everywhere, you know, and it's a good thing. Well, there were 3 friends who lived in this senior housing unit. It was shaped like an L. Mrs. Smith and Miss McGinty lived on the 3rd floor in one part of the L. And Mrs. Winter lived on the 1st floor on the other part of the L. And they could wave to her when they'd see her leave her apartment and go around the neighborhood looking for her cat. She had a little cat, a little black cat named Timmy. And Timmy was always escaping his leash. And she was constantly out looking for him. Well, during this week, they had the 5th murder in their city. And not only was it in their city, it was in their neighborhood. Everyone was afraid to be out at night. And now Miss McGinty and Miss Smith would go out to dinner one night a week. And that way they would get out in the community a little bit, and they could count on each other. But with the murders going on, they didn't feel inclined to go anywhere. So what they decided was they would take turns cooking until they caught the guy. Then this was Miss McGinty's turn to have Mrs. Smith over for dinner. And the ladies were sitting there just beginning their salad when they heard out in the dark night, "Here, kitty, 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 kitty. Here, kitty, 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 kitty." "Oh, would you listen there," said Miss McGinty. "There she is, Mrs. Quinter, out looking for her Timmy. And it's already dark. It's been raining all day. It's a mess out there. And it's getting foggy." And Mrs. Smith said, "Oh, yeah, I know. She's always doing that. I told her you need to tighten the leash on that cat, his collar on him, so he can't get off the leash." And she said, "Oh, it would cause him to choke. What if he got caught on something? I couldn't stand it." "Well, we're going to have to do something about her for sure, because do you know what she does? She cooks chicken for that cat. And she puts it on blue willow plates. Here's your meal, Timmy, on his blue willow plate." And she eats toast. Toast for tea, for supper. Did you ever hear of such a thing? Well, she shouldn't be out tonight, that's for sure. It's dark already, and it's still dreary and still raining, kind of like spitting out there. And there she is, she's going to catch her death. You never know what could happen on a night like tonight. What with the murders going on, she's going to set herself killed. And then where would she be? Where would Timmy be? Where was she? She was wondering that herself, because she found herself in an alley in her very own neighborhood that she'd never been down before. And she called, "Here, Timmy, 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 Tiddy, Timmy, come on, kitty, kitty, kitty." She had his leash in her hand. She hid it on her coat as she walked, and when she did, the raindrops would fly off. "Oh, come on, Timmy, I have your supper ready. Come on, Timmy, come home to me. We'll have dinner. We'll have a cozy night in. It's too wet out here for a cat. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty." And she was so intent on calling her cat and finding him that she didn't hear the footsteps in the alley behind her until a voice said, very close, "What are you doing out in such weather in the alley? It's an old lady like you. You've got no business being out at night. There've been murders, you know. Grandma, you should go on home." She said, "I can't. My cat is out. Did you see a little black cat? He answers to Timmy. Well, most of the time." "No, but you know, Grandma, that cat has 9 lives, and you only have 1. He was a tall man. Oh, he was tall. She was afraid for a minute there that she wouldn't be even tall enough up on her tiptoes to get that leash over his head and around his neck. And as he fell to the ground with her on his back, squeezing that leash tightly, she just shook her head. It's a terrible thing. It's just a terrible thing. And then she heard, meow, meow. Oh, there's my Timmy. She counted out the money in his wallet, 45, 46, 47. Oh, you seem like such a nice fellow, concerned for my safety. But you know, it's the high price of cat food. It really is soaring. Then she put Timmy on the leash, and they walked on home. And by the time Mrs. Smith and Miss McGinty were having their dessert, they saw her light come on, and they gave a little wave out the window at her. And they said, "Oh, I'm so glad she made it home. You never know what could happen on a night like